How about now? All right, thank you. 5 o'clock, time for Rules Confirmation and Public Elections Committee. First up, we have resolutions and then a series of confirmations, including Community Oversight Board. First up is RS 2020-193, Johnston Withers and others, a resolution honoring Rick Schwartz on his 30 years of service to the Nashville Zoo. Is there a motion? Thank you. Any discussion? All right, ready to vote? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. We've got 5 members. Next up, RS 2020-194, and the sponsor's out, so we'll move that to the heel. RS 2020-195, Drawful, a resolution recognizing the 10th anniversary of Vanderbilt University's Next Steps at Vanderbilt program. Is there a motion? Second? Okay. Any discussion? Ready to vote? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. And we are on to elections and confirmations. First up is the Beer Permit Board. Are the nominees for Beer Permit Board in the room? Chris Bellamy here. Oh, hey, Chris. You got, actually, y'all guys can sit there if you like. Okay, great. Okay, Beer Permit Board, we have the reappointment of Mr. Christopher Bellamy, the appointment of Ms. Delphine Fox, and the reappointment of Ms. Kia Jarman with terms expiring October 31st, 2023. Would y'all mind introducing yourselves and talking a little bit about your interest in the board and experience on the board for the reappointments? You can grab the microphone right there.
Ladies first?
Oh. Good evening. I'm the Reverend Jane Borm. I'm with Christ Church Cathedral, and I'm also a member of NOAA, Nashville Organized for Action and Hope. As a person who's been with NOAA for the last 4 years, I have been the co-chair of the policing subcommittee of the Criminal Justice Task Force.
What, excuse me.
I'm sorry?
Are y'all for the Beer Permit Board?
Oh, I'm sorry, the beer board. I thought you were talking about COB.
No.
I'm glad we got that clarified.
That was a confusing introduction for the Beer Board.
Okay, well, he said
So who's here for the?
I'll
do the beer.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't think I can beat that introduction, but it's hard to beat. My name is Chris Bellamy. I'm being reappointed or seeking reappointment to the Beer Permit Board. I'm an attorney here at Neal and Harwell in Tennessee, practice in litigation. I was previously appointed to the Beer Permit Board under the prior mayor, and I really enjoyed the work. I think we did a lot of good things for the community, both from an economic standpoint and from a community service standpoint. So,
Great, thank you. Ms. Delphine, Ms. Fox, would you talk a little bit about, introduce yourself and your interest in the board?
Hello, my name is Delphine Fox. I am the board chair to the Tennessee Latin American Chamber, and I am an entrepreneur in Davidson County with run 2 businesses in healthcare and 1 in commercial cleaning. I work very closely with our community and was nominated to be here, so I'm looking forward to learning all I can regarding what it all entails in all procedure and regulation.
Right. So thank you. And is Ms. Jarman here? No? Okay. Any questions or comments from the committee or other members on these nominees? No? Are y'all ready to vote? Okay, is there a motion? Okay. All in favor of approval? Opposed? Okay. And we'll defer Ms. Jarman 1 meeting. Once we confirm with Mr. Cooper that deferring won't have any adverse effects. Thank y'all. Is Ms. Littman in the room? That's the Stormwater Management Committee. We'll do the same thing with her. Oh, is it? Oh, are you Ms. Jarman?
Yes.
Okay. Since we didn't vote, let's go on. Would you mind introducing yourself?
No, I would.
And talking a little bit about your experience on the beer board?
Hi, Kia Jarman. I live in Donaldson, and I've been on the beer board, I think 2 or 3 years at this point. Just got elected vice chair, so looking forward to continue to serve. Prior to that, I was on the Nashville Farmers Market board.
And what kind of experience have you had on the board?
I
what
think we've
has
made a
been
lot of great changes. So I hope that you've seen some of that in the work that we've done, making sure that we are more fair and just to all types of businesses and organizations that come before us, really streamlining our process of who can get a beer license. And yeah, I think that's it. It's been
Great.
good.
Thank you. Any questions? Is there a motion? All right. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you very much. That takes us to the Community Oversight Board, which we had said that we wouldn't start until 5:15, so we'll take a few minutes before moving on. You on? We have 3 vacancies for the Community Oversight Board. 2 of these vacancies were announced on December 17th, and the other was announced January 7th, and we received 11 nominations for those positions. Here's where we stand. 2 nominees, Jane Borum and Melvin Brown, have withdrawn their names from consideration. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, that was some bad information. It was Brenda Perez and Melvin Brown. I'm so sorry. In addition, 3 nominees have been disqualified under the rules for not turning questionnaires in on time. However, the body could choose to suspend the rules to allow for consideration of these individuals. If we foresee such a rule suspension, we'll need to go ahead and interview those nominees if they're present and shorten the time of each interview accordingly. So I'll ask now if there are members of the Metro Council present who would oppose suspending the rules for these individuals who turned their questionnaires in late. Okay. That being the case, we'll forego interviewing these nominees with our thanks for their interest in serving, leaving us with 6 eligible nominees. The Rules Committee interviewed 2 of these nominees, Ashley Davis and Samuel X, at our last meeting. So we have 4 interviews left to conduct today. We'll allow up to 8 minutes for each candidate, which will allow us to complete the interviews before announcements. That's going to be a strict 8 minutes, and I'm going to set my annoying phone alarm to go off, and we'll move on. Our first interview is Jane Ann Borum. If you would, okay, if you'd mind coming up and sitting right up here, please. Ma'am, would you come sit and sit right up here? Thank you. grab that middle seat right there. Just tap that microphone to make sure it's on.
It's on.
Correct. Great, thank you. Okay, welcome. First, a few questions to establish eligibility under the charter and state law. Have you been a resident of Davidson County for at least the past year?
Yes, sir.
Are you a registered voter?
Yes.
Are you a Metro employee, an employment of a law enforcement agency, an elected official, or the spouse of any such person?
No.
And have you demonstrated knowledge of issues pertaining to civil rights and equity, and do you have experience with criminal justice and policing practices?
Yes.
Great. Would you mind introducing yourself and talking a bit about your interest?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jane Borm. I'm with Christ Church Cathedral as a member there. I've been there for 30 years. I am a part of NOAA, and I have been part of the Criminal Justice Task Force there for the last 4 years. I was the co-chair of the policing subcommittee when it was a task force, and now that it's a working group, I am the co-chair of the Criminal Justice Working Group. In that capacity, I have attended all of the COB meetings as they have happened each month, and I've been very invested in what the COB has done and how it is developed and how it is emerging and the service that it is providing for our community. I've been very pleased with the performance of all the board members, and I'm happy to be considered as someone who might be capable of filling one of those vacancies. As part of my role in NOAA, I also attended recently the policing of justice and law enforcement, or procedural justice and law enforcement workshop that the COB offered here in Nashville. The Chicago police came here and gave us that workshop over a course of 3 days. I've also attended the Nicole regional conferences. That's the National Association for the Community Enforcement of Law, or the Community Oversight of Law Enforcement. And that is a group that is national and has all kinds of interesting community policing series and science evidence. I have met with the Chief of Police, Anderson. I've met with Mike Hager, his deputy. I've met with the FOP. I have kept up all of my police contacts with my own precinct and the downtown precinct, because my church is located in the downtown precinct. So I try to foster a good, positive relationship with the precinct people there and the on-the-beat officers there, because our church services several homeless persons every Sunday. So that is my interest in policing and community involvement. I don't know if you want to know any more about my background, but that is my most recent experience.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Borum? Councilmember Sepulveda.
Hello. So you are a member of NOAA, and you serve on the Criminal Justice Task Force and the Policing Subcommittee. Is there something, a policy or attitude that you feel the COB is lacking that you might be able to transfer over if you were to become part of the COB?
I think there are currently some reviews of policy within the police department that the COB is undergoing work on, namely use of excessive force, how the police department here in Nashville does not get adequate training for dealing with undocumented workers and undocumented persons coming through our city. Those are two areas that we need some work on. There may be some other reviews down the road. Training is one of the concerns, though, that I think NOAA has, that we have some up-to-date community policing kinds of training that would bring us into the 21st century of community policing.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Allen.
Thank you. Appreciate you being here and your willingness to serve. Can you speak a little bit to how the Community Oversight Board can help restore trust and accountability and improve relations between the community and the police?
I think that's one of the major jobs of the COB, actually. And one of the future tasks that the COB sees themselves doing is going out into the community to have public meetings to explain some of the policy reviews that they're undergoing. One was with body and dash cameras. The other is with excessive force, use of force. And this gives the COB a chance then to have designated kinds of neighborhood contacts with the COB so that the COB becomes almost like a personal relationship building mechanism of the city to make the city look more transparent, to give people the chance to trust their government more, to make our government more accountable. And it's a win-win in that regard.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Sledge?
Thank you, Reverend Warren, for being here. I wanted to ask quickly, you mentioned on your application some of your personal experience in civil rights actions in the 60s and early 70s. Can you speak to how that would inform how it has informed your thinking on this and your interest in the board?
Well, being a child of the 60s, I was involved in protests during the Vietnam era at Kent State University, that's in Ohio. And one of my first actions as part of a group called Students for Democratic Society back in the day was to protest the presence of the Oakland police force, who had come to the campus to recruit new officers just days after killing a Black Panther in Oakland. That seemed a little tasteless to us, and we let the police force that came from Oakland know that we would prefer they not use that kind of a timing to do their recruiting. The Black United students on campus felt very strongly about that, and in fact, they marched off campus. I have a photo that was attached to my application of the Black students walking off campus as a body to protest that. SDS worked with Black United students on those issues. That was one of my first experiences. I have also had the unfortunate experience of being jailed for protesting. Not that I committed any violent act. I was in a building where I was told I was not supposed to be, and they called that trespassing, but nevertheless, I was arrested. The jail conditions were not pleasant at all. I wasn't brutalized per se at that experience, but I was treated badly. I've also been treated badly
Thank
by
you,
the
Ms. Borum.
DC police. So those are some
Appreciate
of
it.
my early 60s experiences.
Thank you. Next up, we have Kelly Dement Egwakin. Yes, the middle chair there, please. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Just a few questions first. Have you been a resident of Davidson County for at least the past year?
Yes.
Are you a registered voter?
Yes.
Are you a Metro employee, an employment of law enforcement agency, an elected official, or the spouse of any such person?
No.
And have you demonstrated knowledge of issues pertaining to civil rights and equity, and do you have experience with criminal justice and policing practices?
Yes.
Okay. Could you please introduce yourself and describe your interest in serving on the COB?
Okay. So my name is Kelly Dement-Egwakin, as he said, and I am interested in serving on the COB because I'm just interested in making sure that everyone is treated fairly. And my interest in becoming involved hit when there was some injustices, in my opinion, here in the city of Nashville and in other places. I'm just a mom, work for in early childhood education, and I just want to see that all people, when they have to come into relationships or they have to come into contact with the police, that they are treated fairly, regardless of their race or gender or whatever. I just think everybody should be treated fairly. So that's my interest in becoming involved with the COB.
Great, thank you. Any questions for the nominee? Councilmember Johnston?
Hi. In 2018 on social media, you shared a post from Metro Nashville PD that says, breaking, 1-year-old girl dies after being left in a car seat all day in a pickup truck parked at the family's East Nashville home. Adoptive father reportedly forgot about the child after dropping off her sibling at daycare. Your sharing of that says, this is ridiculous. This is why we need a community oversight board for the police. I'm just wondering how this incident had anything to do with the police.
Well, because I felt that the gentleman should have been charged, number one, because you just don't leave your 1-year-old child in a car seat all day to die, you just don't do that. So I felt like they should have made they didn't treat it fairly to me. You know, that should be investigated. You need to check on that. No. You just don't leave a kid in the car. I'm an early childhood person, so,
right,
and you got kids. You brought them with you. You should take them with you.
No, I understand that the person did wrong by leaving the child, and I'm just wondering how it's the police's fault. And I don't know that this shows that this person wasn't arrested or I'm just wondering how the Community Oversight Board would fall, or what that has to do with the police and this child dying.
Okay, so at the Community Oversight Board, in my opinion, if the Community Oversight Board would be able to step in and look at whether or not this was treated in a fair manner, whether or not the parents should have been arrested, they could it would be a place for the community or the neighbors to say, look, can we investigate this a little bit further? Yeah.
That's more of the district attorney's job.
I understand that, but.
So the Community Oversight Board wouldn't have anything to do with that?
Okay, whatever. I just feel like we need a Community Oversight Board.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Allen?
Thank you for being here. You had mentioned on your application that you have experience as a mediator. Can you talk a little bit about that?
As a mediator, yes. Oh, I'm nervous now. I'm sorry. As a mediator for when we were working together with the Gideon's Army, when we were coming together to make our rules and when we came together to make our rules, to decide how we were going to proceed, that's where I have my mediation experience, to go between both parties to look at what both parties are saying and be equal and be fair and equal to see what each party is trying to say. So that's where my mediation came in.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Iguacan? Great. Thank you very much, ma'am. Next up, we have Ovid Timothy Hughes. Mr. Hughes. Just a few same questions. Have you been a resident of Davidson County for at least the past year?
I have.
Are you a registered voter?
I am.
Are you a Metro employee, an employment or law enforcement agency, elected official, or spouse of any such?
I am not.
Have you demonstrated knowledge of issues pertaining to civil rights and equity, and do you have experience with criminal justice and policing practices?
I believe that I have, and I believe that I do.
Great. Would you mind introducing yourself and describe your interest a bit?
Yes, my name is Timothy Hughes. Ovid Timothy Hughes is my first name. I'm originally from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Have been living here in Nashville, Tennessee for about 20 years. I am an organizer with a group called Black Voters Matter. I'm also a board member with the organization Gideon's Army, and was nominated as well by the NAACP Nashville branch, where I serve as the political action chair for the Nashville branch of the NAACP. I am looking forward to having an opportunity to serve as a mediator and a go-between between the community and the police department. My father's a retired law enforcement officer. My grandfathers were both sheriff's deputies. I care about these issues because I understand from a perspective of an individual who has had interactions and conversations with police officers and police department officials. But also, I care about the issue of public safety. I believe that we can, through transparency and equity and accountability, build stronger relationships between members of the community and members of the police. In addition to the work that I do as an organizer, I also attended the police legitimacy and accountability. I think it was a training that was offered by the Community Oversight Board. I've attended the majority of the Community Oversight Board meetings and have followed the development since the very beginning, was also involved in the process of helping to collect the signatures for the petition that ultimately allowed for the Community Oversight Board to become an initiative and later be on the ballot. I care about these issues very passionately and am looking forward to having an opportunity to serve in that capacity.
Great. Thank you very much. Councilmember Sledge.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for being here, Mr. Hughes.
Sure.
You mentioned on your application that you were trained in adverse childhood experiences and trauma-informed care. Can you speak a little bit more about why you think that'd be beneficial to the COB?
Absolutely. In the work that we do with Gideon's Army in particular, we work with disproportionate minority contact individuals who have had interactions with police officers. In order to do that work, we've got to have a certain measure of training and understanding of the ways in which trauma can influence the lives of individuals from communities that have been, in some instances, policed aggressively. During the research that was done regarding the creation of the Community Oversight Board, there was a release of a report called the Driving While Black Report that Gideon's Army helped to spearhead. During that time, individuals within the community were interviewed about their interaction with police officers and with police on various occasions. And what was learned during the gathering of information and data about that process is that there were individuals within the community who had been deeply traumatized based on the experiences that they had from police stops. As a result, there was a press conference that was held by Gideon's Army that talked about the fact that there was a groundswell of a possibility that there might be an incident. Shortly thereafter, within months, as a matter of fact, there was both the shooting of Jacquees Clemens and later of Daniel Hambrick, which showed in many ways that the Gideon's Army Driving While Black report was kind of the canary in the coal mine as it related to the need for greater accountability and community oversight of police officers, but also the fact that there was an enormous gulf between what people understood to be legally permissible and what was, in fact, potentially dangerous in terms of the interactions between community members and police officers. So there needs to be a way to both address the harm that may have been caused in certain interactions with community members, but also to inform the public about the importance of understanding how the rules work, how police policies can be influenced, and I think that there can be a way for members of the Community Oversight Board to serve as that bridge.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Hughes? Councilmember Stiles.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Hughes, given that your father and also your grandfather were in law enforcement, how has that influenced your relationship with police in your life, then and now?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that question. I think what I've learned, having members of my own family be law enforcement officials and first responders, is I have an appreciation and respect for what it is that police officers do. Also, the fact that there is a tremendous amount of stress that is often associated with the work of doing police community service and public service as a police officer. It's given me an appreciation for both the work that law enforcement officers do, but also as a way of understanding just what it takes to be a member of law enforcement and how it can have a tremendous toll on the individuals who serve. And so it's been helpful to be trauma-informed, both for an understanding of how it affects community members, but also how it affects police officers. I think also it's given me an appreciation for and an understanding of how it is that there can often be issues where there are complexities. No one person is just one thing, and so there are officers who have a tremendous hope that they can play a role in helping to keep the community safe, but they also want to feel like they have the opportunity to go home at the end of the day. And I think there needs to be someone on the board who has an appreciation for understanding those two communities.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any other questions for Mr. Hughes? All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Hughes.
Thank you so much.
Next up, Demarius LaShawn Witzel. Welcome, Mr. Witzel. First few questions, same ones. Have you been a resident of Davidson County for at least a year?
Yes.
Are you a registered voter?
Yes.
Are you a Metro employee, an employment, a law enforcement agency, an elected official, or the spouse of any such?
No.
Have you demonstrated knowledge of issues pertaining to civil rights and equity, and do you have experience with criminal justice and policing practices?
Yes.
Okay, would you mind introducing yourself and talking a bit about your interest, please?
Sure. My name is, excuse me, my name is Demarius Witzel. I go by Sean, so a lot of people know me as Sean. For me, I've always lived a life of service. From the time that I was in elementary school, I've volunteered, I've participated in my community in various ways, and I've continued that throughout my adulthood. I'm a man of integrity, a man who's open-minded and a critical thinker. I believe in humanity. I want to serve humanity in all I can. I believe in this great city. I would like to serve on the Community Oversight Board because I've seen issues of police misconduct. I think we all have. And I've also seen the other side. I've seen good police officers who have served their community in the way that they should. And as someone who is community-minded, who loves the people in this community and who has been exposed to different populations in the community, I would like to be a bridge to help heal anything that might be wrong or hurt, to restore what has been lost and to instill trust and to build a better relationship between the police and the community.
Great, thank you very much. Questions for Mr. Witzel? Councilmember Allen?
So I'm intrigued by your use of arts to deal with some of these things. Can you see how that would inform the way you operate on the COB? It seems like a unique gift.
Most definitely. I feel that I grew up as an artist. I've participated in the arts my entire life, and I've used that to further the causes that I believe in. I own a theater company, and I've dealt with issues such as domestic violence, mass incarceration, homelessness, and a variety of other things. And I've been able to use that to communicate a message, to get people talking, to get people thinking. And as a writer, those things require a certain amount of research. And as a writer, as a playwright, I have to present both sides, so it causes me to have to delve deeply into one side of an issue and to the other to understand the total problem or the total issue. And I've also been able to use the arts as a way to not just further conversations, but to create initiatives that can put action behind the things that I'm addressing.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Witzel? Councilmember Porterfield?
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity. Mr. Witzel, I apologize. You may have mentioned it. I may not have heard it. But do you have any experience working with MNPD at all?
Well, just last week, I did a training with police cadets, MNPD police cadets. It was a part of their diversity training, and I work with a nonprofit called Southern Word, where I go into a lot of different spaces, community spaces, English classes from elementary all the way up into college, and even prisons and other places, facilitating spoken word workshops. So what I did with the cadets last week, and I did it also last year, was take them through some writing exercises so that they could fully examine their why. Why is it that they're here? And the intent of that is for them to kind of keep that near and dear to their heart. Policing is very hard work, and I'm sure it can get tiring and frustrating and challenging over the years. But we wanted them to walk away with something tangible, something that stated why they were here, how they got here, and what they plan to do in the future. And so they were able to walk away with that piece of paper that affirmed their why. So, and it was refreshing for me to interact with cadets who have not yet started their journey or at the beginning of their journey. And so many of them wanted to serve their community, and so many of them talked about some of the things that the Community Oversight Board represents. So I was happy to be a part of that.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And also, I'm familiar with you doing work with criminal justice reform. Can you speak to your desire to see that and the work that you do with the incarcerated population?
Most definitely. So I am a member of NOAA as well. I work on the Criminal Justice Working Group. And one thing about to connect criminal justice reform and the volunteer work that I do with incarcerated populations is that we can talk about policy, we can talk about statistics and things of that nature, but I get to see real people who are affected by this. So people who have made mistakes in their lives and who are still human beings living and breathing and still in need of help, still in need of people to be there for them. So criminal justice and working in the prisons connect for me directly, not just because of, once again, those people are not just stats that I read, but they're living, breathing human beings that I get to hear their stories and help them communicate their stories and help them address the issues that they want to address in their lives.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Witzel? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And we'll be voting on these nominees at tonight's council meeting here shortly. One last piece of business that we have is Resolution RS 2020-194 Benedict, a resolution recognizing Anthony Viglietti for his service to the community of Nashville and Davidson County. The sponsor has not made. You signed off? Oh, great, thank you. Fantastic. All right, is there a motion? All right, second. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you very much. Any other business? We're adjourned.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.